Luka Trebojevic. I hope I said that correctly. My name is Jeff Burrows. We're a part of the compliance team, and we're here to take some questions. So we'll give it a few minutes for people to come up with them, and we've linked in the doc with the agenda and a spot for questions. So fire when ready.
So what are your first impressions of GitLab? Like many of the people in the compliance team are new. Considering that the team is new, what is your assessment of where we're better than average, worse than average?
That's a really great question. Thanks for that. So my first impression is that it's that pushing all the workflow through our own product is a tremendous way to grow it really quickly. But that also comes with some compliance challenges, just because, you know, I came in with an innate understanding of how change management works in some industry products, but I'm figuring that out as I go within GitLab. But I think it's really great because it's making me learn the product in depth really quickly. I don't know, Luca, anything to add there?
Yeah, I would say that in terms of the team, the level of talent at GitLab is very high, and so to get things done, it's very easy. And then from the compliance side, our values really help facilitate us getting a lot of really good work done really quickly. And there are some challenges with putting everything out there, screening what should go public, what shouldn't. We often have conversations about, if this is public and an auditor sees this, are they going to change the way they assess GitLab during the process? So there are a lot of really interesting challenges, but I think overall it's been a net positive and it really helps get things done.
I will say as an aside, oh, sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
I was just going to say that as a team, I want to say the compliance team is actually much more capable and technical than most other compliance teams that I've worked with throughout my career. And I say that because what it is compliance tends to be very much a let me check off the check boxes kind of mindset. And where that goes wrong is truly understanding the spirit of why the compliance requirement is there. So to give you a specific example, I've worked with compliance auditors in the past where they come here and they have this checkbox set, and they'll tell me something like, you need to have an IDS or an intrusion detection system in this network. And yes, we have an IDS in this network. Great, I'll check off this box. The reality of it is, what is the spirit of that requirement? The spirit of the requirement isn't that you have an IDS in the network. It is that you are aware of what's going on in the network, and you're actually actively monitoring and alerting based on certain types of activities that are in the network. So this is one of my biggest pet peeves about some compliance auditors that I've worked with in the past is that, I could have this IDS in the network, but I might not be collecting any logs or monitoring those logs or actually taking action or alerts on any of that activity. But I've passed. So that's what we're trying to avoid here. And I'm very, very proud of this compliance team that we don't think that way. We truly understand the spirit of why the requirement's there. And we're working towards making sure we have the right intent behind the requirements.
Thanks for that, Kathy. I think that's really well said. The next question, Sid, do you want to vocalize that one as well?
Yeah. So you said that the auditors might be wary of making things public. What is content? Do we have defined somewhere what is content that can't be made public?
Sure. So it's not so much that the auditors are going to be wary that some content is put in public, but there are times when you have to make the determination. If you put this part of an internal control in the public domain and an auditor comes across it, there might be questions that you have to answer to an auditor that you otherwise wouldn't have to answer. And so we're always obviously going to lean on the side of transparency, and we're going to put public everything that we can. But you also have to be realistic in how doing that is going to affect your audit process, right? And then in terms of what can't you put in public, a good example might be some of the work we're doing with FIPS 142, where we're working with federal clients that aren't publicly listed on the website already. So we just have to be very careful and mindful about not disclosing public sector client names or any client names that shouldn't be in the public domain to make sure that it doesn't leak out there.
Yeah, so not disclosing client names is, I think, something we're all familiar with throughout the company. It's not specific to compliance. But a lot of these other things, things that's realistic and careful, it's not very actionable. Like, it doesn't help me make decisions on a day-to-day basis. I'd love to see the team. Like, either things can be public, and I'd love to see what can be. And otherwise, I hope that we can stay as transparent, even if it might take some extra time.
I think if we look at currently what we have online, you can get a very good example of what we do believe should be shared publicly. And I think there's only two sections that currently we keep for internal use only, and that's internal across the company, which in many companies, they don't even share this internally. So right now we have the implementation guidance and some examples of what auditors might request to satisfy control. Those are things that we have currently gated for GitLab employees. And I think as we firm those up and we work across groups to determine what exactly those mean, those potentially, and Jeff and Luca, you can weigh in, those potentially might be ungated and be allowed to be shared.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's a tension that a lot of security teams face, where the more information you make public, the greater the attack surface of the organization. And so there's a line somewhere in there where it is okay to have some high-level system diagrams, but you might not want to say, here's a comprehensive inventory of all the systems we have and what they're running on. And it's the same with audit, where we want to be mindful of being really transparent with information, but we don't want to make the audit, we don't want to increase the audit surface or make that any more onerous than it has to be. So I think we're still trying to find that balance, and it's something we constantly struggle with.
Cool. Mel, you had two things, implementation guidance. What was the other one?
I believe it was the examples of audit of an evidence an auditor might request to satisfy this control. The reference links section links actually to our internal documentation as well. And I can share this in the chat with everyone.
Or in the doc. Thanks. As said on slide 6, compliance help with customers. What is customer-facing content? I know of one page because I made it, but is that a page that the audit team will contribute to? Or I read something about blog posts. I'm not sure I've seen them yet. What can we expect?
Sure. So when we talk about customer-facing content, it's more so the example you linked to, the financial services regulatory compliance, that's an example of a customer-facing compliance page. And so in essence, we know that working with GitLab for our own compliance, that it's a very powerful tool to help enable compliance for any regulated organization. And so one of the things we're doing is we're finding these nuances of how can GitLab help facilitate your compliance, and we're documenting that, we're putting it public, and we're showing people, hey, this is one way you can do it. And so we do have a slide. It's let's see, if you go to slide 10, there's a current example of something we're working on right now. And so there's a pending MR for how GitLab can help clients meet IEC 62304, which is a standard for medical device software development. And so when we talk about public-facing compliance pages and blog posts and documentation, that's what we mean is creating these pages and blog posts to show how you could use GitLab to meet these different frameworks.
Cool, thanks, Alexander.
The other thing, just to also provide concrete examples of what we do internally and what our customers surely also must be doing is, whenever we go through a finance request where someone wants to purchase a service or a product, part of that process includes getting a security review and approval that if we're putting any sensitive data into that SaaS or that product, that we want to make sure that they have done due diligence to protect our sensitive data. So that is an example of where we make requests for reports and certifications from that vendor to ensure that they've done that due diligence. So I have no doubt that our customers also look at that type of report and things like that to make decisions on whether to approve the purchase.
Great, thanks. I think Philippe, you had the next question. Do you want to vocalize that one?
Sure, thank you. I will express that in maybe a different way. I wonder if there is something that we do in compliance and regulation that we can translate into features. So not focusing on all the customers can be compliant or GitLab can be compliant, but how we can help them be compliant just by using GitLab.
Yeah, that's a really great question. Thanks for that. So I think part of it is that we've chosen an open source compliance umbrella framework to capture a lot of the compliance work that we're doing. And so we're continuing that, we're extending it, and we're making it available to our customers. I think the fact that we have our security controls and the guidance documentation, well, most of the guidance documentation that we're putting together that relate to each of the controls, the fact that that's out on our website is not something that I've seen another company do. So I think that's one really great step in that direction that we can tell some of our smaller clients, hey, take this stuff, use it, adapt it for your needs. And part of that is also that we're trying to build out processes in a way where the work that we're going to be doing to capture the work related to our own compliance efforts might be a project that we could clone. Luca's working on this for the HIPAA compliance framework right now, where a customer would be able to take a project, clone it, and it would have a lot of the steps, a lot of the guidance, a lot of the underlying documentation embodied within that project in a way where they could just go out and use it for their own needs.
And to touch on the
something that I've been working with Mel on kind of this topic in general, how we can build features in the product that help with compliance for our users. There's an issue that I linked in the agenda that is kind of the scratch pad that we're working on together. And then there's also the release governance label, which has quite a lot of internal customer issues that are related there. So that those discussions are ongoing. And if you have other ideas or features that could be in the product, then do let me know.
And to touch on specifically the features in GitLab itself that can help facilitate compliance, when you distill it down to the bare essentials of what compliance is you need to have traceability for everything. And so you need to be able to show that the development you're doing is tied back to a specific requirement. You need to have logs that you can show an auditor. And so in the case of, for example, HIPAA compliance, the first thing people are going to ask for is, do you have logs for this? Can you show it? Can you show that your risk assessment was completed from beginning to end? Can you show this process was followed? And so natively what we have now, most of everything is tracked. Issues are very powerful. Issue or description templates are a very great tool. The checkboxes are great. And then there's the requirements management category vision, which is going to be incredibly helpful. Merge request approvals are a very powerful compliance tool. And so I think that the essentials are there. we're already planning to, or GitLab is already planning to extend the audit entries. And so, you know, it's at this point in terms of features, it's just about extending what we already have.
All right, thank you.
Well said, Luca. We don't have anything else in the doc in terms of questions, but anybody else have anything for us?
I do want to mention that recently we added in a field in Salesforce to allow for noting that security compliance support has been given to a particular customer with, you know, working with the sales team. So that's a way to kind of tie in the compliance support to closing out on sales. So if you're in the sales organization, that is why we now ask for what is the SFDC opportunity link if we're having to fill out security questionnaires or other supporting items in order to help with a sales deal.
Thanks for that, Kathy. And I will add that one of the things I really like about compliance at GitLab is that we're very mindful of being a revenue neutral cost center. So we don't want to do compliance for the sake of compliance. You know, Kathy mentioned that we're not checkboxy individuals, but we don't want to start going down the road of achieving a particular audit certification or, you know, checking all the boxes in a compliance framework if it's not going to be worth it in the long run. And so I think we're very mindful of the reason we're going after SOC 2 is that provides value to our customers, and that will streamline some of the sales process. So, you know, we're approaching it all with that mindset. So hopefully we can bring that value to the teams as well as we go through the process.
I'll also add that, you know, I'm going to use IC 6304 as an example. That was one of GitLab's clients asking, or a prospective asking, about how you can use it to maintain traceability through the software development lifecycle for medical devices. And so, you know, our clients, many of them are burdened with a lot of these regulatory, non-regulatory frameworks, whether it be HIPAA or one of the ISO standards or one of the IEC standards. And so if you have a customer, if you're working with a customer that has a compliance need like this, they might not even be thinking about GitLab as a tool to help them meet those requirements. And so we want to hear from you. If you have a customer or a prospect that has been talking about some of the troubles they've had with compliance, create an issue on the compliance project, and we'll take a look and we'll see, is there any way that we can tie our feature set into what they're trying to do. And oftentimes it's one of those things that's out there. It's super obvious when you know about it, but you don't know about it until somebody specifically tells you. And so we're trying to specifically tell people, you know, for any of these frameworks, for any of these regulations, you can actually use GitLab extensively to check a lot of your boxes natively through something you're already doing. So please, I very much encourage everybody, create an issue if you have a customer like that, or if you have a prospect that's asking about PCI or one of the ISO standards or anything at all. And if we don't have anything in the books, we're very, very excited to create new documentation to extend to frameworks we haven't looked at already.
I think that was a really good point that Luca made. And I've also fielded a lot of requests from the field about customers asking about specific types of compliance certifications like SOC 2, for example. These certifications take money to achieve, right? You have to bring in many cases, a third-party audit firm to actually rubber stamp the whole thing and do an audit. So you have to be mindful of, okay, if you have a request like this, what is that opportunity deal size, right? What are we leaving on the table if we do not have this? And if it's kind of like you can help us help you by providing some of those metrics so that we can say, hey, look, we want approval to go with this process, but it's going to cost this much. And here's the deal sizes and the revenue that we're leaving on the table if we don't get this funded and achieved. So that's something that we could really use help from the field in generating these requests.
We have an open issue in our compliance project that does speak exactly to what Kathy's saying. So if you're talking with your customers, I will put the link to that issue as soon as I find it in the Google Doc so that you can all see and just comment on there if in your interactions with prospects or current customers, they do request something that's not as specific as what Luca was mentioning. It's very good for us to know because we would then be able to add it to our roadmap. So thank you, Kathy.
Who else has a great question for us? There's got to be some more. All right, I might have been wrong. There might not be any more great questions. I will, in the agenda doc for this meeting, I'll add the ways you can tag us in issues, our email alias, how to get a hold of us on Slack. So if anybody thinks of anything after this question, please feel free to reach out. We're right on the cusp of rolling out a lot of these efforts that we've been building. So I'm sure we'll get a chance to work with everybody here much more closely. But yeah, please keep the great questions coming. Thanks, everybody. And yeah, I guess we'll see you all on the company call.
Thank you.
Thanks.